Hello, my name is Josh Dye, and I'm the Marketing and Outreach Coordinator for Housing Link. Housing Link is a nonprofit organization, and our service is our website, www.housinglink.org, where you can search for affordable rental housing in Minnesota. We also have a variety of other resources on our website for landlords and renters, social service agencies, and government agencies that are related to rental housing. What I'll be talking about today are the subsidized housing programs in Minnesota that are most common. And we'll get right started with the Section 8 voucher program. Section 8 housing choice vouchers, the way it works is that if you are a renter and you have a low income, you go to a local housing authority and you get a voucher. When you have that voucher, that means that you'll pay approximately 30% of your income for the rent. And when you take that voucher, you take it out into the community and you can use it anywhere where a landlord will accept it. A landlord is not required to accept a Section 8 voucher, but on the Housing Link website you can search and find a number of landlords that will take that voucher. When you are living in that property, it's really not about how much the rent is, it's about how much income you make. So let's say you're renting an apartment for $700 a month. If you have a Section 8 voucher, let's say your monthly income is $100 a month, you'll pay approximately $30 a month for the rent, and then the Section 8 voucher will chip in the rest. That's the good news about the Section 8 voucher program, is that it does have that mobility and you do pay approximately 30% of your income for the rent. The bad news is that the waiting lists for the Section 8 voucher lists are very long. Anybody who is on the waiting list can wait anywhere from 2 to more than 5 years before they're able to get a voucher. The other downside is that not only are the waiting lists long, but oftentimes they're closed. And when they do open up, they open for a short period of time. The reason I mention the Section 8 voucher program is because if you are in a situation now where you could benefit from having one, and you see that one of the waiting lists opens, make sure to get on it. Because by the time then that your name comes up on the list, maybe your life will be in a situation where you can still benefit from the voucher, and it can become very helpful. So that's the Section 8 voucher program. The next program is ProjectBased Section 8. Now, ProjectBased Section 8 is different than the Section 8 voucher program in that ProjectBased Section 8 is if you live in that specific building or in that specific unit, you pay a percentage of your income for the rent, and that's usually approximately 30%. Now, with ProjectBased Section 8, this is privately owned and operated housing, and if you do move out of the ProjectBased Section 8 unit, you will no longer have the subsidy or no longer have the situation where you're paying a percentage of your income. Now, ProjectBased Section 8, it is privately owned and operated, so in that case, it might just be a certain percentage of the units in the building that are ProjectBased Section 8, as opposed to the entire building being a subsidized situation. The next subsidized housing we'll talk about is public housing. Now, public housing is similar to ProjectBased Section 8, that if you live in that specific building or that specific unit, you're paying a percentage of your income, usually 30%. The difference, though, between ProjectBased Section 8 and public housing is that in public housing, it's usually owned and operated by a government agency. Now, oftentimes when people think of public housing, they think of high-rise towers, but there's actually becoming quite a bit of a variety of different types of housing. There is still the high-rise towers, but there's also sometimes scattered site single-family homes or other types of public housing. So if you don't want to live in a tower, there are some other options with public housing. And it's also important to note that public housing also does operate on a waiting list, and the way that you apply for that is by whatever agency that is operating it. You will contact them to see what it takes to get on the waiting list. Same goes for the project-based Section 8, in that you will contact the property directly to find out how long their waiting list is and what it takes to get on that specific waiting list. And the last one we'll talk about is a program called Section 42. Now, the way Section 42 works is that somebody who is developing housing will get some tax credits, and they get those credits on those taxes in exchange for having some units rent below the market rate. So unlike the previous 3 types of subsidized housing that we talked about, Section 8 vouchers, project-based Section 8, and public housing, each of those If you're living in that type of housing, you're paying a percentage of your income. Section 42 is different in that you are just renting a unit below the market rate. And so, as an example, let's say a one-bedroom normally would go for $700. You might be paying something around $600 for a Section 42 unit. Section 42 is a way to sometimes live in a nicer building than you might be otherwise able to afford, and it is privately owned and operated as well. However, when you hear Section 42, you can't automatically assume that it's affordable for your particular situation. One example that I like to use is an artist cooperative that's in the downtowns of one of the major cities here in the Twin Cities Metro. And to live in that particular building, you have to make a minimum of $30,000 a year, but you also cannot make more than $35,000 a year. And the rent for a one-bedroom is $900. Now you might be thinking, wow, that doesn't sound like a very affordable situation. However, if you are an artist and you want to live around other artists and you want to live in the downtown and pay less than the market rate, it might be just what you need in terms of your life to advance the way you want. So it's not always an affordable situation for you, but it might be, and you want to keep that in mind. So just as a quick recap, the Section 8 voucher program is mobile, and you'll pay approximately 30% of your income. Project-based Section 8, you have to live in that specific building or that specific unit. Same thing with public housing, and then Section 42 is where you're renting below the market rate. So those are the major subsidized housing programs that you're likely to encounter. And there's also more information about the waiting list status and subsidized housing on the Housing Link website, and that is available at www.housinglink.org. Thank you.